And welcome. This is going to be another astrological compatibility video, and this time it's going to be Cancer and Libra. Which, off the bat, what I want to say is I have noticed a fair amount of really strong friendships between Cancer and Libra. I have not, however, seen a lot of long lasting romantic relationships between Cancer and Libra. I also of the cancers and the libras that I know of, I don't know many of them that find themselves attracted to one another. And of those that are attracted to one another, usually there's too many differences, or just life paths that get in the way. Now, that being said, you're within 3 signs away from each other, so there's much more compatibility than, say, like Cancer and Leo or Cancer and Gemini. Um, and an interesting thing is, I mean, you both have a deep appreciation for peacekeeping, especially in a social way. Now, Cancer is usually much more focused on peacekeeping, let's say, with the nuclear family. It's the fourth house, which is the house of the mother, and in a house, it would be likened to the kitchen. Libra is the seventh house, which I liken to the bedroom and is much more to do with intimacy and marriage and things like that. But you can see where those two go together very, very well. And typically, Cancerians are very artistic, and as are Librans. And the funny thing is that there's a fair amount of differences between the two. I've noticed that where a fair amount of Cancerians and Librans can get along in that they both have an appreciation for art and music and things like that, they usually have different tastes in it. It's like if you're a Cancerian and you really appreciate folk music and classic rock, and then you have a Libran who really, really likes heavy metal and techno, and it's like you both can really appreciate the depth of how much you each appreciate each style of music, but also not like each other's sense of taste in music. And that can kind of characterize it too. You also got to watch out because well, okay, as a Cancerian, you typically you look for a partner that you can kind of look to as an authority in your life, and you really, I mean, at least as an energy, you look for somebody that you can feel secure with, that you feel like you can trust their judgment. Now, interestingly enough, like Libra is related to the Justice card in the tarot deck, and typically they do have a strong sense of judgment. But as with all signs, you have an unevolved side and an evolved side, which isn't a judgment in character. It's simply a matter of like how many karmic lessons have you been through, and are you basing your judgments on ego or on like, I don't even know what you would call it, an evolved sense of appreciation and grace for others. And the fun thing is, like, an evolved Libra is usually so amazing, and they are a great authority figure, and often they don't even want to be an authority, which is sometimes a really good mark of somebody who should be in a position of power, that they will take it on and they will do their duty, but they're not trying to grab for power. But an unevolved Libra often does try to grab for power and will often base their judgments on ego rather than on heart. And that's understandable. They're an air sign, and I have a lot of really great friends who are Libras, and a lot of I know, and Libra is ruled by Venus. It is like the Aphrodite sign. And so there is a lot of love in there, and being ruled by the seventh house, and being, or not, the it's not the bedroom, it's I liken it to the bathroom. Scorpio would be the bedroom, kind of that physical, the carnal, the lust. But Libra is like where you share real genuine intimacy. You poop in front of each other, you share each other's toothbrushes, you got the his and hers sinks, and you can see what kind of, like, grossness you each share, but you both still appreciate each other for it. And cancers really, really have, you guys have a really deep need to be able to be vulnerable in your relationships because, especially being the crab in the rest of life, you often have to hide away a lot of that emotional sensitivity. And especially as a Cancer sun sign, you likely had a life theme where showing your emotions created a certain sense of danger, and you had to learn to keep that in. And so, being able to share that sort of vulnerability and intimacy in a relationship is very, very valuable to you as a Cancer. Now, Libras typically, as an air sign, they kind of have a different sense of things. It's interesting because Well, I mean, all signs kind of have an interesting dichotomy. So Libra usually starts out as either, because you're a duality sign too. You either start out as kind of the soft, sensitive kid who learns how to kind of build a thicker skin and to recognize the balance in all things and to kind of be a peacekeeper among things. But usually in the unevolved state, as you're growing up, you're more of an instigator of injustice than protector of justice, but that helps you get to that place where you become a protector of judgment from a heart space instead of an ego space. And so if you're a Cancerian looking at a lineup with a Libran, really like get to know where they are in their journey because it's not about age. And everybody, there is no wrong or right place. Like when I speak of evolved or unevolved, it's not right or wrong. It's just where are you on your journey? And everybody's in a different space. So as a Cancerian, if you find an evolved Libran, you probably have a very good time in that, especially if you both have a strong appreciation for food. And that and being ruled by Venus, that can very much be in there. And as a Cancerian, whereas you tend to have a big appreciation for comfort foods, you might also like how Libra can often make a meal an artistic matter on top of that. And if you both have the same, not the same taste in music, but similar enough tastes in music, that can also be a really big sharing of intimacy in there. Now, make sure that ahead of time you negotiate. Like if you're lined up, either one of you, make sure that you're very clear. And this is for both of you because both Cancerians and Libras tend to have a way of not recognizing they can be very ambiguous in their communication and often leaving room for a pivot later. Make sure if you're looking at lining up romantically with a Libra or a Cancer that you are very clear about what your boundaries are, what your level of neediness is in a relationship, which is, there's no level of neediness that is bad. It's just we often get blindsided by them. So make sure you're clear up front about what you need. And because you both have to do with relationships and family, make sure you're clear from the get go. Like, how many kids do you want? Who do you expect to raise the children? How do you want to split things? What do you consider fair or unfair? And cancers, you tend to go more by, I mean, your motto of your sign is I feel. So make sure that the Libra is able to understand that you are more likely to go by what you feel and intuit they are doing rather than what they say they are doing. And Libra makes sure that you understand that because it's hard not to take that as a sense of injustice if you're much more logically based, as many Librans are. And likewise, um, cancers recognize that Libras are highly logical. They're one of the most intellectual signs, and they usually very much, well, they don't often prize themselves for their intellect in the way that an Aquarian would, but they are often very intellectual and much more deeply than people usually give them credit for, especially being ruled by Venus. But they are, and they very much prize that. And so, make sure that you are, how do I even put it? Like, there's a certain amount of Libra, especially as the polar opposite to Aries, that has to do with ego. And so a Libra is much more likely to have at least one of their primary love languages be words of affection, whereas as a Cancerian is much more likely to have acts of service or even quality time be a love language that's primary to them. I don't know. Make sure that you get to know each other a little bit more in detail before you decide, and recognize that you both tend to have a quality of needing to process things and think about them before you decide on them, which others can sometimes consider indecisive, but you both might appreciate each other for that actually. But just give each other a little space in that. And that goes exceptionally for you, Libra, because as an air sign you are probably going to find that you move and think a bit faster than a Cancer, and they need you to have patience in that way. And likewise, Cancerians recognize that a Libra they're probably going to click a little bit faster because they're an air sign and you are a water sign. So, I mean, you don't have to rush yourself, but just be clear when you need more time to process. All right, I'm going to go ahead and leave this here. Let me know of your experiences as a Libra and or a Cancer together, and if you have any specific questions, I'm happy to answer them in the comment section below. I'll catch you in the next video.